Death Stranding, whatever it might be, looks really good. It's the first game from Kojima since his split with Konami back in 2015, and as a die-hard Metal Gear Solid fan, it interests me a great deal. Kojima's always had a knack for storytelling, and it looks like he'll deliver another good one in November. But after I watched Death Stranding's trailer last week, I began to think about Kojima's career outside of MGS. I know his history with Nintendo and Konami, but I started to wonder, how many people have played any of his games that aren't Metal Gear? So here it is, a video about games that Kojima worked on that weren't Metal Gear. Pinguin Adventure was an action-adventure platformer published in 1986. It was the first game Kojima worked on as part of Konami. The game's story is focused on a penguin named Penta, who has to overcome difficulties to bring a golden apple to a sick penguin princess named Pinguette. It was a considerably complex game for its time, featuring RPG elements, boss fights, minigames, purchasable items, and a variety of level designs, including water levels, ice levels, caves, and even outer space. It was praised for its gameplay, variety, and graphics. The game even had a good ending in which the princess survives, and a bad ending in which she dies. Those multiple endings possibly sparked Kojima's idea to have multiple endings in Metal Gear Solid as well. Not bad for his first project ever, even if he was only an assistant designer. Shortly after Pinguin Adventure, Kojima was given more control on another project called Snatcher. He was the writer and designer of the game, and it's the first time that you see his flair for cinematic games come to life. Snatcher was a cyberpunk graphic adventure game that took inspiration from films like Blade Runner and Terminator. Kojima was asked to trim the game down by more than half of what he originally intended, but it was still released to positive reception even though it sold poorly. In the years since, Snatcher has developed a cult-like following and is still considered one of the best cyberpunk games to ever be made. It set the stage for Kojima's future success and proved that he could do well in a leadership role. Policenauts was the next game that Kojima was put in charge of, and it was another graphic adventure. It told the story of an astronaut who was recovered from a deep sleep in space and put back on Earth after 24 years. After working as a detective in LA, the astronaut returns to space to investigate his ex-wife's murder. Along the way, he uncovers something far more sinister that I won't spoil here. As a fan of Kojima, I often hear a lot about how he makes movies, not games. Well, Policenauts is another example of that, and I'll say it again. Sure, he makes movies, but they're really good movies. And this game proves that yet again. Policenauts' legacy has grown over the years, and if I were to recommend one Kojima game to try that doesn't have Metal Gear in the title, it would be this one. During the late 90s, Kojima also worked on a few games from the Tokimeki Memorial series. The games are dating simulators, and they have a surprisingly long history, with the first game being released in 1994 and the most recent in 2018. Somewhere along the way, I suppose Konami needed help with a few of the games, so they decided to throw Kojima into the mix. His work on Tokimeki wasn't as involved as his other projects, but it's worth mentioning since he did directly impact the series during the late 90s. During that same time, Kojima was given the task of working on console ports for Beatmania. They're rhythm games that contributed to the popularity of music-based games during the late 90s, so Konami wanted them available on more systems. That's where Kojima came in to assist. It's another example of a project that didn't give him complete freedom over writing, but did involve his expertise in making the game more readily available. Zone of the Enders was a third-person hack-and-slash released in 2001 that had Kojima as its producer. It was heavy into science fiction like many of the games that he had already worked on, and in his role as producer, Kojima assisted the development team with their creative direction, and you can tell that his personal style rubbed off on the aesthetic appeal of the game. Yoji Shinkawa, the character and mechanical designer of Metal Gear, also worked on the mechas in this game, and it's easy to tell that the Kojima influence within Konami was alive and well during production of this game. Zone of the Enders received mostly positive reception, and it was pretty decent. A demo for Metal Gear Solid 2 was also included, which helped it sell more and provided an interesting tie-in between the two series. A couple of years after Zone of the Enders, Kojima was put in charge of production of another game called Boktai. It's an action-adventure RPG that tells the story of a vampire hunter that uses a gun that fires sunlight to destroy his enemies. I only had time to try this one out for a few minutes on Game Boy Advance, but I have to say that it really isn't that bad for a very dated handheld game, and it was good enough that it had 2 sequels. I couldn't help but think about Vamp while I was playing it, and wondering what it would be like to have a sunlight gun to shoot at him in Sons of Liberty. A man can dream, right? I'd also like to point out that Lunar Nights is actually the 4th game in the Boktai series and was even called Boktai DS in Japan. Overall, this series kept Kojima relatively busy in his producer role at Konami during the early to mid-2000s. Perhaps the weirdest franchise that Kojima worked as a producer on during this period is Kabutore. It was a stock trading simulation game brought to you by the minds behind Metal Gear Solid 4. I don't have much else to say about this. I guess if you want to play the stock market, pick it up and try to train yourself with a DS game? Maybe that's where Drebin learned how to play the weapons market. I don't know. The world may never know. After Kabutore in 2009, there isn't much more to Kojima's career with Konami. He was slated to be a producer of a game called 12 Tender Killers, but after looking around for more info, I'm not sure the game was ever even released. If you have any details or sources on 12 Tender Killers, please leave them in the comments below because I'd love to find out more about this game. Of course, we all know what PT was and why it was cancelled. That story could make for an entire other video, but I'll just say that it makes me very sad that we never got to play it. But that leads us to Death Stranding, a game that I'm still not sure what to think of, but I'm very confident in. It has a star-studded cast and Kojima's brilliant mind behind it. I'm excited to see what he does without Konami's overbearing nature holding him back. But back to the original point of this video. I don't think people know much about Kojima's games other than Metal Gear Solid, so I hope you enjoyed this look at other projects he's worked on. Have you played Snatcher, Policenauts, or any of the other games I covered? What did you think of them? Be sure to let me know about your personal experience with Kojima games, and don't forget to leave a like, share the video, and check out our Patreon if you're into that. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you guys on the next one.